Okay, today we're talking about the founder of salvation, but of who or what? So let's begin in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 5. And it reads, For unto the angel hath he not put in subjection the world to come, whereof we speak. So let's pause real quick. We're talking about a subjection of the world, but let's see what that world says. Just to kind of venture out to see what is being said. So we said the world, and if we look at this, it has the ideal, the implication of land that is terrain part of the globe, specifically. Now catch this: it says the Roman Empire, Earth, world. So the world to come is making reference, according to this, to the portions of the world that the Roman Empire has conquered. It's being saved. It's being savaged from the destruction that been has been dealt it up to this point. So a renewal. So a lot of times we can walk around with the idea of this cloudy space, golden gates, and that's it. But right here, even there is that understanding, even by the authors and those who wrote the Strong Concordance, that is something that deals with this realm right here, the land, the earth. So we need to start to kind of push that idea completely. There's going to be salvation establishing here. And again, it's just so different than how we have been taught or thought to think about things. And then it says, whereof we speak. Verse 6. But one in a certain place testified, saying, What is man that thou art mindful of him, or the Son of Man that thou visitest him? So what are we? We are dust. We are really nothing in comparison to the Almighty, in comparison to the Son, who is perfect. Going forth, it says in verse 7, Thou madest him a little lower than the angels, thou crownest him with glory and honor, and didst set him over the works of thy hands. So, of course, this is going back to the very beginning with Adam and Eve, who came a little bit later. But what the Most High did was, and what his Son did was, at the very beginning, 6 days creation, and then on the sixth day with man, he gives everything over, like the keys to the kingdom, and everything is supposed to be in subjection. Now we have fallen from that as we've gone along, and everything has gone into chaos because of sin. But this is part of that salvaging as well, that renewal of all things. I think that's pretty much it with that, with also the idea of that we are lesser than the angels at this point in time. So no getting it twisted. Going to verse 8. Thou hast put all things in subjection under his feet, for in that he put all in subjection under him, he left nothing that is not put under him. But now we see not yet all things put under him. So this is showing the extent of what the Father truly wanted to do for mankind since the very beginning with Adam. He wanted all these things to be under subjection to all of us, all principalities, the natural world around us, the animal life, complete harmony, if you will, and nothing that would go out of this nature, kill man, cause violence. Think about everything, whether it's in the sea, whether on the land, whether in the air, everything being subjected to him. But as it's stated right here, that still is the case to this present day. We have yet to see that reality. Yes, there can be taming of animals, but as far as them all being subjected and none of them causing any harm, no, that has yet to come. Where a child can stick their hand in an adder's den or a snake's den and no harm, or you put animals that right now seem like they're natural enemies and there's no slaughtering or killing of one another. That has yet to come. The subjection of all things in order from first to last under mankind. But what does it say in verse 9? But we see Jesus, or Yeshua, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, should taste death, ah, taste death for every man. So we see the man perfected through the person of the Messiah, and we see him going through the same experience as us. He was made lower than the angels, and he has been subjected to death as well. But he gives us hope because he's the firstborn from the world of the dead, coming back to the living. And we've seen him crowned with glory and honor through the words of inspiration. And the whole purpose is to provide us with grace, a way back, if you will, to the Most High, so that we never have to stay in that perpetual state of death, of separation from the Most High. And again, this stresses what we had read earlier in the chapter, like what is the purpose? Like, let me just roll up there real quick. So we're talking about warning against the neglecting salvation. So what happens if we neglect salvation is that we lose out on being alive, or truly living. And so it is hazardous, if you will, to our health to stay in such a state. And plus you feel it when you're here, if there's anger and some animosity, hatred, you feel that living death inside you, and you want to clear yourself of it. But so many times pride get in the way so that this never becomes a reality. Going to Hebrews chapter 2, verse 10. For it became him from whom all things and by whom are all things, and bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. So this is a key verse right here. The whole idea that the Messiah had to be perfected. And so many times we try to escape the suffering of this life, when the very person who's supposed to be our captain suffered through all of that in order to be made perfect. So what is that telling us about what we must go through? We must go through the pain. We must go through the hardship as well to be made into that diamond that has come from the coal and become something of value. We must remove all of the crud that is around us. And this is the will of the Most High, to bring in a many sons. Now, will everyone want to experience this? No. That's just point blank. Many people are just going to want this simple, easy life, maybe mooching on others, enslaving others, taking advantage of others, stealing from others to avoid any type of suffering. But really what's being created inside is no perfection. There's no perfecting of who they are. There's a lack of character that comes about from staying away from any type of suffering. Going on, verse 11. For both he that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified are all of one, for which cause he is not ashamed to call them brethren. So I know in one portion in John, I believe it talks about in the prayer of the Messiah, that may they be one as we are one. The Messiah is the bridge between the Most High, the Father, and between mankind. And so because he has that mutual experience, and because he is that pathway of sanctification for those who are being sanctified, there's no shame on his behalf to be known as our brother. And it goes deeper than that. Before the world was created in this spiritual state, when we were spirit children. But again, that's a digression at this point in time. But just staying in line with what we have here in the biblical records, in what we have been given in the book of Hebrew. We go to verse 12, saying, I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the church will I sing unto thee. So this must be our focus as well. He's the captain of our salvation. So what must we do at the same time? We must also imitate his example and sing the praise of the Most High and what he has done, how he has rescued us. It never should be no declaration of, look what I did, how I pulled myself on my bootstraps, on my merits alone, because the author of our salvation was far from that. He always said, "Thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done," even to the point of death, and even dying for the rest of us. So how much more for us to imitate this example of singing the praises of the one who knows, of the one who created us. Going forward, verse 13. And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children which God hath given me. So, and this states it pretty clearly right here. We must have faith in the Father. And this is the exact attitude of the Messiah. Without that trusting, without that stepping over, seeing something but having enough evidence to continue going forward, then we dwindle away. There's, again, that building of perfection through trials that dissipates, that disappears. And just a key point right here. The Most High has given us, the children that have come into the flesh, over to the Messiah for his protection. And so we must continue to look forward to him with everything. If we lose focus and we stop doing those things which he did, then we lose sight of the Father, because the Father is the one who has installed the Messiah for our guidance, for our salvaging, for our salvation. Verse 14. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death. The power of death, that is, the devil. So this shows completely 100% that Messiah had flesh and blood. He went through everything. There was no separation of body and spirit. He felt every whoop, every nail being pushed through his flesh. And he suffered it all for those children that the Most High had given into his care, that he knew would come, whether in the past, the present at that point in time, or in the future. He looked to the joy set before him, and just to bring many sons back to the Father, because of the work that he accomplished here on earth. And all to take down the deceiver, which is what devil means, to take down the person who had inserted death into our lives by tempting our first parents to disobey the Most High and eat of that which was forbidden. All right, going forward. Verse 15. And deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. And this is key right here. We all, at some point in time, have feared death. Just what can someone else do? And it stays like we are protecting ourselves. Like there's no need to put ourselves into any type of needless harm. Like say that no one's gonna get on the interstate and just walk in front of a vehicle moving 70, 80, 90 miles per hour. That makes no sense. But at the same time, if it comes to standing up for truth and feeling that peer pressure all around us, are people showing like hateful looks? Are we going to stick to it? Are we going to fear death? Or will we be courageous and bold and like, no, I stand for this. There's no compromise at all in my life. I will stand for the Most High, even if it cost me my life at this point in time. Most people at the slightest disconvenience or inconvenience or slightest sense of pain or frustration will give up and just do what everyone else do. But we're called to get past that through our focus on the Messiah, who faced death straight in the eyes and said, no, I'm going for it. I know that there's more than this life that's here. I know there's a world to come. I know there is a salvaging of all these things and the renewal of all things. And we must remember that in our daily walk. Verse 16, for verily, he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Adam. So again, this is stressing the idea that there is no type of advantage that the Messiah had that over us. He experienced everything straightforward, all of the mental abuse, all of the if you will, the abuse of the tongue. That's what I'm looking for. All of the profanities and cursing, he took it all of the physical pain, he took it all as well. So again, he as our example, we should look on him when we come to times that may get to that point, but most of us, I believe, will pass through without that being the case of death, but being prepared just in case, and knowing that the Most High can always provide a way out for us, given that we are faithful and that we calm our fear and accept His will and say that statement always: "Your will be done. Your will be done. Your will be done." So he was of the seed of Abraham. Interesting, this is just a side note. If you look at G4690, let's see if I can hover it over. It says something sown that is seed, including the male sperm, by implication offspring, specifically a remnant, figuratively as if kept over from planting. Issue, seed. Just thought it interesting that the word for seed is sperma. Going forward, verse 17. Wherefore, in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. So again, this is one of those verses that is narrowing down what group of people. I know we mentioned who at the very beginning. So, likened unto his brethren. Well, what brethren? Who had high priest? Who had sin? Like, what is sin? Isn't sin defined by the transgressing of the law? Who would know that with a certainty? The Hebrews, the Israelites, and of course anyone who clung onto the Hebrews would know this part. But as far as the world at large, would they know about this? No. So it's a subjection to the will of the Father through His law, which brought forth a high priest. And again, it's just a switching over, if you will. I know I'm kind of skipping ahead right now, but switching over from the Aaronic priesthood to the Melchizedek priesthood once again. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. So those are people who will be partaking in this salvation. Those who are looking for a high priest, someone who's merciful and faithful over the whole household of the Most High, to reconcile, which means to atone or to be at one. That division that sin once caused us, it now is tossed aside. All right, and going forth finally to verse 18. For in that he himself has suffered, being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted. So just going through the experience is no distant isolation. Like, okay, why are you unable to get past this? What's the hiccup? No, he actually suffered. He was tempted. He overcame. And because he was able to overcome without falling into sin, he is able to mercifully and faithfully comfort us, which, if we look at succor, it means to aid or relieve, to help. And Most High knows that we all are tempted, that Satan can be a powerful adversary if we are unwilling to look at the Messiah. So may that be a comfort to us as we push on in our days and week to continue looking forward to the Messiah and what he has done for us and what is promised to us who are faithful to the end, the salvaging of this world, a salvaging of our soul.